TKO Part 3 Downward Spiral. He had almost killed her once after he had lost his job. Ronald had begun stealing equipment from the facility he worked at to sell on the street. He had sunk down into Tricia's world and had become heinous and evil about it too. It was deep-rooted anger, born from the notion he had about where he was headed, and he subconsciously knew it wasn't good. However, he chose not to stop the downward spiral and instead was more enthralled with keeping her, no matter what. So, when he finally got home after selling the TV he stole from the basement of one of the buildings he worked in, and found that she had not only spent the money he had put aside for their rent, but also hadn't saved him a hit of the crack she had obviously been smoking, he went berserk. He threw her around the room and then into the empty bathtub after tearing her clothes off. He picked up a pair of scissors and tried to ram them into her vagina, but she was screaming and holding his arms with all of her might. He then threw the scissors down, and she lay in the bathtub out of breath from the struggle. He turned the water on, and the tub began to fill as she lay there panting and gasping for air through her sobs until there was enough to cover her head. Tricia thought he was done, so she didn't move while the water was flowing into the tub. She started forward as he pushed her head down when she realized he was going to drown her in the bathtub. She struggled and scratched his arm so deeply that his blood covered the water as it dispersed in the turbulence as he continued to push her head down into it. Somehow, she flipped around, and he banged her head on the side of the old porcelain tub, which caused her to slither down into the water in a state of unconsciousness. Ronald watched her lifeless body slide down into the bloody water that was becoming more deeply red with the blood that was running from her split lip. But then he suddenly realized he may have killed her. He snatched her up out of the water, splashing it all over the floor and toilet, and pulled her out of the bathtub. He noticed that her nose was also bleeding, so he laid her on the floor and ran to get some ice to wrap in a towel. When he got back to the bathroom, she had regained consciousness. He wiped her bleeding face and held the ice that he had wrapped in a towel on her face and began to cry. She began to cry too, as she hoisted herself up using the toilet as an anchor. She held onto the sink and looked into the mirror and immediately knew that her nose was broken. It wasn't the first time.